Sup y'all, it's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today we're going to be doing a warrior guide. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me for like an updated patch 6.2 Hellfire Citadel warrior guide, and I'll be honest, the reason I didn't want to do it is because I was worried as soon as I put out this video, like 2 days later, they put out a hotfix, make everything in the video wrong, and I'd look like an idiot in front of everybody. So I was worried about that, but I think if that was going to happen, it would have already, and so I'm finally ready to do a warrior guide, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things in this video. First things we're going to be talking about is the stat parity, then we're going to look at like what spec should you play for just single target, mostly single target, and then AoE situations. After that, we're going to look at your trinkets that you want to use, because trinkets are very important in Hellfire Citadel, along with a couple of other gearing decisions that you might want to make. And also on top of that, we're going to not only just be looking at your spec in general, we're going to look at every single fight in Hellfire Citadel. I'm going to tell you guys the the most optimal spec to play, as well as the most optimal talents to choose for that fight. And so anyway, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about, so we'll get into it. Now the first thing, of course, is your stat parity. Your stat parity, people ask me a lot, like, what is the best stat? What is the best, the best anything? Guys, it's not that fucking simple. Like, if it was that simple, everybody'd be doing the same thing. But they're not, and the reason for that is it really depends on what gear you have. Now, your stat parity really, like, the main thing that determines it is two things. If you have the Blackrock Foundry 4-piece set bonus, you do not want to have your critical strike chance go above 25%, because then you crit cap during your burst phase, and your burst phase is where you get a lot of your damage. And so if you do have the Blackrock Foundry 4-piece set bonus, still, you probably want to not go above 25% chance to crit. I would say, like, I mean, it may be raid buffed, but I was kind of a little bit higher, and I seem to turn out alright. But you don't really want to be stacking crit if you have that bonus, is the main point. And also, you want to make sure that you have your haste up to 11% if you don't have World Breaker's Resolve. World Breaker's Resolve is the class trinket that you get from Archimon, and it basically gives you a ton of haste passively whenever you're attacking the same target. And so really, if you do have that, you don't really need to worry about making any haste breakpoints, and haste goes from being at like pretty much the top, making sure you have the 11% breakpoint. And the 11% breakpoint is important because that allows you to get your Bloodthirst under 4 seconds and a cooldown. And the reason that's important is because, like, you can get 2 Bloodthirsts inside of an Enrage, and so you make sure you have your Enrages up more often, which is very important for obvious reasons. And so anyway, if you do have that trinket, you don't really need to worry about the haste, because the haste that trinket gives you will be enough to cover all of the haste breakpoints. Now, if you do have the trinket, and I'm going to assume a lot of people do, just because, I mean, people are going to be getting it over time, what you really want to be focusing on, your number one stat is going to be Mastery. Mastery is your most important stat. Mastery is basically a passive damage increase as long as you have Enrage up, and with that trinket, you're going to be able to do Bloodthirst over and over and over. You're going to pretty much be able to maintain at least like 90% Enrage uptime, and so it's going to be a huge damage increase. Also, behind Mastery, you want to be going for Critical Strike. That's my recommendation. Behind Critical Strike, I would say maybe probably I would say like probably Multi-Strike. Multi-Strike is pretty good. It's obviously not the best, but it's okay. And behind Multi-Strike, I would say would be Versatility, and I would say like Versatility and Haste are pretty much equal. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go with Versatility, because it would also make me take less damage. But again, that's kind of up to you guys as well. But yeah, depending on that trinket, and if you don't have that trinket, and you don't have the 4-piece Blackrock Foundry set bonus, you do want to be going pretty much as much crit as possible to make sure you can keep your Enrage up as much as possible. But what you really want to be doing is making sure you get that fucking trinket, because that's really, really important. Now, as a general rule, if you're fighting one target, and there's not like a point in the fight where this target takes like a huge amount of damage extra. And so example for this is like Gorefiend. Gorefiend takes a lot of damage towards the end of the fight, of course, because you kill him during his feast phase, and so because of that, arms warriors are very strong on Gorefiend, and also they're able to execute a lot of different targets. But as a general rule, if you're fighting one target, you probably want to be Fury. Now, your basic go-to talents for Fury for single target is going to be Stormbolt, because it's actually fucking simple. It does the most damage. And then also probably either Avatar or Bloodbath. I usually just go with Avatar, but some people go with Bloodbath as well. It really kind of depends on what your playstyle is, but I just, as I said, I just go with Avatar. It seems to work out fine for me. And your level 100 talent, that really also depends on what the fight is. And so if you find yourself just barely missing your execute, your recklessness phase right at the last point, and you're not using anger management, you might want to go ahead and pick up anger management. But Siegebreaker is also going to be a very good talent to use as well. If you have the trinket from Manaroth, which is the empty drinking horn. If you put down Ravager, it helps you stack Ravager, helps you stack the drinking horn. Sorry, the drinking horn stacks very, very quickly with Ravager, and so that's also very helpful. But I think that most people kind of just use Siegebreaker because Ravager is very stationary, and Siegebreaker you can use whenever. Now, if you're going for AoE is very simple as well. You want to go with Dragon's Roar. Okay, it's just real easy. Sometimes if you want to control the ads, so like maybe for Zul'Harak or for is there an Archimon ads that you have to control? Even for a Kilrogg, some people go with Shockwave. And so if you do have a bunch of ads that you do want to control, you can definitely use Shockwave. But most people, just for pure damage, you want to go with Dragon's Roar. Now, besides that, you of course want to be going with Bladestorm. For really 2 or more targets, you want to be going with Bladestorm. It's just a very strong talent. And for your level 100 talent, I would recommend going with Ravager, especially if there's like consistent AoE. And so like example of this is like Iskar. Whenever Iskar, Iskar is very good fight for having Ravager. Other fights that are AoE fights are not as good. So like Hellfire Assault is not a very good fight to have Ravager because the mobs are moving around all the time, and you can't guarantee that they're going to be in the Ravager the whole time. And also, you could use Anger Management, and sometimes Anger Management allows you to I guess like hit like every other wave of ads with some fights. And so example for this is like Zul'Harak, and if you have Anger Management, you can make sure that you basically have Bladestorm up for every other set of ads. But if you don't have Anger Management, it's not going to be up for every other set of ads, and so it's going to lower your damage a lot, even though the ads are very close together. And it was the same thing a long time ago with, what was the fight? High Imperator Margok, what was it? Anger Management turned out to be very, very good just because it allowed your Bladestorms to line up very well with the ad waves. And so it's all about like thinking and playing intelligently. But as a general rule, what I generally do if I'm doing an AoE fight, Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, Ravager. Okay, real simple. I just fucking like Ravager. Okay, honestly, like it's not even really that good. I just think it's really cool. But a lot of people also use Anger Management, and so they can get more Bladestorms because Bladestorm is a lot stronger than Ravager is. So anyway, guys, those are pretty much the talent choices you want to be using basically for single target and multi-target. Now let's talk about the trinkets. Trinkets are very I would say they can be kind of confusing. Now for Arms Warriors, what you really want to be focusing on, if you're doing a very, very large, like probably 5 or more targets, the Arms Warrior class trinket is not really as important, but there aren't really any fights that you have to do that. And so my recommendation for Arms Warriors, the 2 best trinkets that you want to have is what's it called? The Gorefiend's trinket, Gorefiend trinket. I'm not sure what its name is. Unending Hunger or something like that. It's a very, it has very high critical strike chance passively, and it also stacks strength up. It's very, very strong. It's the strongest non-class trinket for Arms Warriors. Another option, if you don't have that, is you could also go with the Rumbling Pebble from Kormrok. I don't know how to pronounce his name, honestly. I think it's Kormrok, and that's another option. But you pretty much for Arms Warrior, you want to go with the the Gorefiend trinket as well as the class trinket for any sort of single target and 2 target fights. Any 2 target fight, as a general rule, again, Arms Warriors are extremely strong on, because you can of course cleave executes over to the other target with sweeping strikes. And so anyway, that's another important thing. Now for Fury Warriors, the class trinket is extremely important. Like, it's probably the most important thing that you can possibly get out of all of Hellfire Citadel is getting this class trinket. Make sure that you get that. Now your secondary trinket is also very simple. You want to go ahead and make sure that you get the the Empty Drinking Horn from Manaroth. And the reason for that is just because you're attacking with both weapons, and again, you have like this haste, and so you're attacking even faster, you're stacking the buff up even faster. As a general rule, you want to go with that Empty Drinking Horn. It is very, very strong. Those 2 trinkets, it's really not really that complicated what you want to have. Now for some fights like Hellfire Assault, you can go with Discordant Chorus, which is the AoE cleave trinket, but honestly, you're probably not going to have that because it's better for like Death Knights than it is for Warriors, I believe. And so I would recommend just going with the Empty Drinking Horn and with the class trinket, and you're going to be pretty much good to go. Now for anything else, like the Rumbling Pebble is very weak for Fury Warriors, and so unless you have like a mythic version, honestly, I think if you probably have like a normal mode version of the Empty Drinking Horn, it's going to be better than the mythic version of the what do you call it? I forgot, the Rumbling Pebble. And so anyway, guys, what I do want to do right now is I want to go through every single different Hellfire Citadel fight, and I'm going to tell you guys now, there are some changes between like Heroic and Mythic, and mostly a lot of those really kind of depend on how your guild is going to be doing it. And so these are my recommendations. These are like, I went through like the top like 50 logs basically for each fight, and I kind of looked at like what are the similarities and, you know, like reoccurring things in these logs, and then kind of looked at myself, what do I do, and you know, so that's pretty much how I got these. Now for Hellfire Assault, as I said before, Hellfire Assault is an AoE fight, and so you want to be going Fury. Fury scales a lot better than Arms does with AoE, because whenever you Bladestorm as Arms, you're just doing weapon damage, but Fury has the added bonus of having the Enrage up while you're Bladestorming, and so Bladestorm scales much better, AoE damage scales much better with Fury than it does with Arms, and so you definitely want to be going Fury with Hellfire Assault, and then you want to be going, of course, Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and probably Anger Management. You don't want to go with Ravager. I was talking about this a little bit before, and the reason for that is it's just what can happen is that like you have like the big pile of ads, and then the ads move or something like that, and then the Ravager is useless. It's more important to make sure you have Bladestorm up as many times as possible because of how powerful Bladestorm is. Now for Iron Reaver, you also still want to be Fury. Arms is a possibility for Iron Reaver because you can execute some of the mines, and you know, again, I would not recommend it, but if you really like playing Arms, you can for Iron Reaver, but it's just not, in my opinion, what would be optimal. Fury is definitely what I would say, and that's what I play on Iron Reaver. Definitely want to go Stormbolt. Sometimes you could go Dragon's Roar, but I don't really see like why you would do that. And then again, go with I would say like, probably Avatar and Siegebreaker. Now, what I said before with like kind of making sure that you have like your talents line up, because of how long it is between like whenever Iron Reaver engages and whenever she goes up into the air, you're probably going to be able to get you know, a couple of recklessnesses in, and the reason for that is if you do have the new set bonus, and you'll be able to get like tons of them off because each Wild Strike crit reduces it by 25 seconds. If you don't have that, you could maybe stick with Anger Management to try and get 2 before she goes up in the air for the aerial assault phases, but that's not really what I would recommend. I would just say just go with Siegebreaker, or you know, again, it really also has to do with how fast your guild is going to fight. And so if you think that, you know, you're going to have enough time and Anger Management will help things line up better for you, go ahead with it. But what I've seen most people doing is Siegebreaker. I actually just use Anger Management, but I don't really spend a whole lot of time researching this stuff. Like, I actually learn as much as you guys do whenever I make these videos, because I just pretty much YOLO it and I just do whatever. Now, the next fight is, of course, Kormrok. Now, Kormrok is just a standard AoE fight, and so be doing Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and Ravager. Now, you want to pre-place your Ravager, and the reason for that is sometimes the hands will come up a little bit earlier than like 1 minute, and so if you do pre-place your Ravager for a couple of seconds, it will definitely be up for the hands. They die very quickly, and you can also Bladestorm, and just make sure that you have your Enrage up for Bladestorm. That kind of goes without saying, but I just wanted to say that anyway. Maximum AoE talents for Kormrok, and people say that it's kind of like fluff damage, and that's actually not really true, and the reason for that is if you have your Legendary Ring, you'll be able to use your Legendary Ring on almost every single wave of hands, and all of that damage you deal is going to be put directly onto the boss afterwards, after the ring goes away, and so it's a huge amount of damage that you can do to the boss just by AoEing down those hands as fast and as much as possible, and so be aware of that. Now the next fight, of course, is Hellfire Council, Hellfire High Council, whatever. That is obviously an Arms fight. You know, you go through 3 different execute phases, and during one execute phase, you know, you have the potential to get the buff, the Fell Rage, which makes you do like huge executes. I actually got that today. I got a rank 5 on that fight because I got Fell Rage at the right time, and you can also cleave the executes whenever you're fighting Gorefiend, or Gurtok Blood Boil. Whenever you're fighting him, you can cleave those onto Jubathos, and so you're doing like double execute damage. And also, you know, in fights where you don't really have, like, it's like less than a minute, I would say, in execute phase, Arms is going to outperform Fury in terms of execute damage. And also, whenever they do get low health, you guys know that's whenever it really counts, whenever you're doing the most damage as possible. And so definitely want to go Arms with that, and make sure that you have, again, Dragon's Roar, just because it's 2 targets. You pretty much always want to be using Dragon's Roar as Arms, honestly, because you're really only going to be playing Arms whenever it's more than 2 targets. And so definitely go with Dragon's Roar, and probably, I would say, actually it's Bloodbath. You want to go with Bloodbath, and your last talent I would go with Anger Management, and the reason for that is just so you can make sure that you do have Recklessness up for every single time that they are low health. That's mostly important in between Jubathos and Dia Dark Whisper, but also you can maybe get another one in between, just to make sure that you do have Execute up for all of your Recklessness up for all of your big Execute phases. And so next fight is Kilrogg Dead-Eye. Now this also, there's a lot of like kind of mixing and matching that you can do, and almost anything that you do on Kilrogg Dead-Eye can work if you're playing the fight to make it work. And so if you're playing arms, and if you come up out of the the Visions of Death, and I'm going to assume that you do get Visions of Death, if you come out of it and the boss will be in execute range for at least, I don't know, like 10 to 20 seconds, while you still have the 400% damage buff, you can go arms, and you'll probably do a ridiculous fucking amount of damage. But if you're not really going to have that happen, you just go down to first wave, which they make me do. Then you could probably go Fury, and everything would be pretty much fine. Some people also use Shockwave on Kilrogg Dead-Eye in order to control the ads on the bottom. I used to use that. Now I use Dragon's Roar, since we are a little bit better geared and we can handle them. But you can use that as well. Some other people also use Bladestorm and Ravager for that fight, and that's actually what I do, so I can AoE down the ads as much as possible and make sure that we always get 20 stacks and we're back up as soon as we can be. And other people go with Avatar and Anger Management, or with Avatar and Siegebreaker, or Avatar and Ravager. Mostly, like, if you do go with Avatar or something like that, it can work out. It's just you have to make sure that you do have the other person that's going down with you into the visions is able to help you with the AoE damage, because of course you're going to be losing a lot of damage by not having Bladestorm. And so anyway, it's very simple. Gorefiend, since you're going to be, like, there's going to be a lot of times whenever an ad comes up at like 10% health, just charge over there, fucking execute it, killed the ad, helped the raid, and you did a lot of damage. Everybody's happy. And so Gorefiend is definitely an arms fight. Sometimes I wanted to go Fury. I kind of want to go Fury in that fight, but it just can never really work out. And also because you have that huge execute damage on the last feast on Mythic, you just do ridiculous fucking damage. And so definitely, I would say definitely go arms for Gorefiend. Go with Dragon's Roar, definitely. I would say Avatar, because like your big damage phase is single target, and so make sure that you because like he's doing feast and he's taking double damage, and so go with Avatar. And then for your last for your 100 talent, like some people are going with with like Ravager or something like that, but I would personally just recommend just going with Anger Management, and you'll be fine. Just as long as make sure that each time that feast is up and you do have everything up, that you are able to use Recklessness and with Avatar and your ring and everything, just for maximum damage. Kind of common sense, but there it is. Now for Iskar is just a straight AoE fight, very simple. Go Fury, by the way, definitely want to go Fury. Now arms is a possibility, but you're gonna have to be doing a lot of fucking a lot of gymnastics here, like making sure that you hit the right target before somebody else does. And I would recommend not even worrying about it and just going with arms. And with that fight, you definitely want to be Fury. Oh, sorry, not worrying about it and going Fury. I did confuse myself there. You definitely want to go Fury for that fight, and Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and Ravager. Very, very simple. Again, like, you could say that it's fluff damage, but because you do all of that damage with the ring up, that damage will be reflected back onto the boss if those ads are dead. And, it's always very important to kind of look at the greater good. And sometimes it isn't good to just, like, have that AoE fluff damage, like Thograr would be an example for that. But now that we have the rings, doing all of that big AoE, fluff damage or meter padding can actually turn out to be very useful. And so the next fight is, let's see, what should I really go? Yeah, I'll do Socrathar. Socrathar, a lot of people are playing arms on Socrathar, and the reason for that is, of course, because you do have those casters that you pull in the second phase, and so you spend a lot of time actually cleaving the mobs down. And also, arms has a pretty good burst damage with Colossus Smash. Getting a couple of good Mortal Strikes in, and maybe even executes on the Dominators, killing them as fast as possible. Arms does have a very strong burst if you do use it properly, and you have everything set up beforehand. And so what I would recommend for Socrathar is definitely playing arms, going with Dragon's Roar, and probably Avatar, and most likely Anger Management. Anger Management will probably allow you to pretty much make sure that every single time that you do have Recklessness up or Dominators up, you will have Recklessness and and Avatar and everything up for it, and you won't really have to worry or not have your cooldowns up for when the Dominators come out, which is the most important part of the fight. Some people might want to use Ravager if they want to just put it on the ads to pad meters, but I don't think that a lot of people are really at that point yet where they can take those chances. Now, Zakuun is a very simple, straightforward single target fight, and so you want to be going with Stormbolt, Avatar, or Bloodbath. Now, some people do use Bloodbath for single target. Again, I just prefer to use Avatar, but some people do use Bloodbath, and so you can go either one of those. I just use Avatar though. And your 100 talent does kind of depend. Now, you don't really want to be using Ravager, and the reason for that is because Zakuun does jump around and move around a little bit. You don't want him to move around or have to postpone your Ravager for him moving around, and so I would recommend either going Siegebreaker or Anger Management, depending on how fast your kill times are. Now, Tyrant, Zakari, and I guess we could do Zul'Harak. I guess it depends. Like, some people say Tyrant's harder, Zul'Harak is harder. We'll just go with Tyrant. Now, Tyrant is an obvious arms fight, right? Because you have those huge executes at the end, and you also have the execute phase of all three of the ads that happen throughout the fight, and you can cleave that onto the boss. Tyrant is a very, very strong arms fight, and so you want to be going with arms. And also Dragon's Roar, because there are two targets. I mean, really, honestly, if you're just fighting one target the whole time, you probably don't want to be playing arms anyway. But you definitely want to go with Dragon's Roar, and then probably go with Bloodbath. The reason for that is, Bloodbath does a lot more damage as arms than it does for Fury, just because you spend more time with, with Colossus Smash up and Bloodbath up at the same time, and so that kind of multiplies the damage and makes it do even more. And so definitely go with Bloodbath. And the last talent, I would probably recommend going with with Anger Management. Again, you can use Ravager, but because in the last phase you have to be moving around, and then sometimes you have to be moving around the other phases, Ravager can also be moved out of place, and Anger Management also makes it to where you definitely will make sure that you have Recklessness up all the times that you do need it. Now, Zul'Harak is a very difficult fight, and so if you do have problems controlling the Fel Imps, what you could do is you could go with Shockwave. But if you just need to interrupt them and stop the cast just once, Dragon's Roar obviously fulfills that same function. And so for Zul'Harak, by the way, you definitely do want to go Fury. Now, some people can go Arms because you can cleave off of the two big ads, and also Arms has very strong, burst damage at the end of the fight whenever he's doing those AoE pulses, and it's kind of like a DPS race. So Arms is also very useful, but I would recommend just going Fury for it. That's what I do, and it's pretty much fine. So you want to go with Dragon's Roar or Shockwave, depending on how you want to handle the ads. And then after that, definitely go Bladestorm. Bladestorm is amazing for that fight. And then for the last... the last 100 talent, you want to go with Anger Management. And the reason for that is if you do that, you're going to be able to make sure that your Bladestorms are about every 40 seconds, and the ads come out about every 20 to 25 seconds, which allows you to make sure that you get your Bladestorm off every other set of Fel Imps. And so obviously that's going to increase your damage a lot, and make sure that you can take those ads out of the fight as soon as they happen. And so definitely go with Anger Management with that fight. Now, Manaroth, you definitely do want to go Fury. Now, if you're doing Mythic Manaroth, which I haven't done, my understanding with Mythic Manaroth is that there are a lot more ads during the fight, and so Bladestorm becomes more and more important. Now, I played Bladestorm today on Manaroth, and I did pretty well, but I would recommend if you're doing Heroic Manaroth, you could just go with Avatar, because the last phase is going to be the hardest, and so you can stack cooldowns with at the end with Avatar and Bladestorm and, Recklessness and, spam Execute. And so if you're doing Mythic Manaroth, you probably... Well, if you're doing Mythic Manaroth, you don't need my fucking help. You know what to do. But, anyway, Manaroth you do want to go Fury either way with. And definitely go with Dragon's Roar because, again, it interrupts the imps. And also, on top of that, it just does the most damage. You can go Shockwave again to control the ads. But, again, that has to do with what your group is doing. And so, also, after that, you do want to definitely go with, Bladestorm if you're doing Mythic, or your ads are being a problem. And either one, honestly, either one, in my opinion, is pretty much the same. It's just kind of like different goals, but the same outcome between Bladestorm and Avatar. I prefer to just use Bladestorm because, let's be real, it's fucking cool. But anyway, for your last talent, you again want to make sure that you have Anger Management, and that's going to make sure that your Bladestorm is up for every other set of ads again. And so again, it's just making sure that you kill those ads as fast as possible, and Bladestorm does a lot of damage on top of that. And so definitely want to go with Anger Management for your 100 talent. Now, Archimond, I've actually been playing Fury a lot for Archimon, and it's been going pretty well, but a lot of other people do play ARMS, and they do seem to be outperforming me as Fury, and so I think I'm probably going to try that next week and see how Fury goes, or sorry, see how ARMS goes. And so I kind of have to recommend playing ARMS, even though all of my parses are as Fury. And for Archimon, what most people have been doing, not myself, is going with Dragon's Roar, Bloodbath, and Anger Management. Bloodbath, again, just makes it to where every single time an ad is about to die, you can make sure you have that up along with Colossus Smash and cleave some big damage, big Bloodbath damage onto Archimon or on whatever else that there is as well. And so Bloodbath is very important for that, and it helps you out a lot. And so anyway, those are pretty much all of the fights. And for Mythic Archimon, I think it's the same. Like, I watched a couple video guides, but again, like, if you're doing Mythic Archimon, you don't need my help. And so anyway, that's pretty much what I think that you guys need to know in terms of going into, Hellfire Citadel, what talents you need to be using. Now, I want to do a best-in-slot guide, but I'm worried that, since it's very situational and you don't really have control over what your other stats are, that it might not be helpful for as many people. Let me know if you do want me to do a best-in-slot guide, and I'll do my best to do it. And maybe a couple of other gameplay guides in terms of Fury and ARMS Warriors as well. Again, just let me know. And by the way, Gladiator Warriors suck, and so don't play those. A lot of people ask me about that. They're not good anymore. So that's all there is to it. They're okay. They're okay, but they're not good. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that in terms of what talents, what stat priorities, everything like that, go ahead and let me know. I'll do my best to answer. But hopefully this helped, and thank you for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.